Hey everyone, this is Shannon with Smokin the Wild, and on this week's hot tip, I'm going to show you exactly how to cook better meat every single time. Stay tuned. All right guys, no matter where you're cooking meat, whether it be out here or in here, or wherever you're cooking your protein, whether it be beef, chicken, pork, or wild game, there's one thing you can do that will help you be successful time in and time out that most people I encounter have never even thought about, including me till about 9 or 10 years ago. Most families have food traditions, kitchen cooking traditions, that some of it is not rooted in anything significant whatsoever. It was just some family member down the ancestral line that started doing something and people just picked up on it, but it really has no practical purpose at any time. And there's a story that illustrates that. There was a guy that married into a family that was deep rooted in cooking history. And when it came to Thanksgiving, cooking the Thanksgiving ham was like a rite of passage for the women in the family. And every single female in the family looked forward to the day when they got their chance to prepare the ham for the entire family. And one particular year, it became his wife's turn, and she was excited. She got to make the family ham. There were going to be cousins, second and third and fourth cousins, and aunts and uncles, and people from their church, and a huge gathering of people. And it was all centered around the Thanksgiving ham. Well, as it turns out, shortly before Thanksgiving, they found out they were pregnant with their first child. And on the day of Thanksgiving, early in the morning, she came to him and said, "Honey, I'm so sick, I can't even get out of bed. I'm not going to be able to make this ham. What do I do?" And he's like, "Well, you know what? I tell you what, honey, I'll do it for you. You tell me how to do it, and I'll do it exactly. It'll be like you did it." And she thought about it for half a second. She said, "Done. That's a good deal, because I don't know when my chance is going to come around again. But hang on a second. You got to go get Nana's pan, her ham pan." And he didn't ask any questions, as any smart guy would do. You never ask questions when it comes to your woman asking you to do something like that. So he scurries over to his mother-in-law's house, grabs Nana's ham pan, scurries home, follows the instructions from his wife on how to do the glaze and all of those things. And then it came time to serve the ham. Everybody, all of the fixins came out, and everybody was waiting. I mean, there might have been a drum roll going. And out comes the Thanksgiving ham. And immediately his wife burst into tears. His mother-in-law burst into tears. And he's like, "What is going on?" And he sets the platter of the ham down on the table. You could have heard a pin drop. Well, the great-grandma, not Nana, the great-grandma was there. And he said, Nanny, there was Nanny and Nana. She said, "Nanny, what's wrong?" And she goes, "You didn't use Nana's pan, did you?" He's like, "How could you tell by just looking at the ham on this platter?" She said, "Well, the end of the ham is not knocked off, and that's how we know." And I mean, honestly, hon, I think the ham's ruined. And he's thinking to himself, he's like, "How?" She said, "I don't know. You'll have to ask my mom, who's in a nursing home. She's the one that taught us how to do this." So later that day, he goes to the nursing home, and he goes into Nana's room, and he explains what happens. And she starts dying laughing. And she said, "Those silly people, that pan doesn't affect the taste of the ham. The only reason why I started knocking the end of the ham off was because we were too poor to buy another pan, and that's the only way I could fit it in the pan. It didn't affect the taste of the ham." But see, that's how traditions in cooking sometimes get started. I know in my family, most of the men cooked and smoked, and women did too. And the way I was raised to know if meat was done was you took a knife and you put a little slit in the middle, and you splayed it open. And that you went by sight. You went by the color of the meat. Maybe that's why so many times whoever was cooking would have to put the meat back on, because somebody would cut right into it and it was too rare or too overdone or whatever. And I saw a lot of meals get ruined by that technique. But I started doing that, and into my 40s, I was still doing that until about 9 or 10 years ago. I was at Nick Parsons from Hasty Bake's house, and I was helping him smoke a bunch of pork butts for a charity event. And I started watching Nick putting this steel probe into the meat, and I thought he was injecting it with one of his special sauces. And after a while, I asked him what he was injecting with, and he goes, "Man, I'm not injecting it. I'm I'm temping the meat. And I was like, you're doing what? He goes, well, how do you do it? And when I explained how I checked to see when meat was done, he laughed and he said, have you never heard of a meat thermometer? But I was like, no. And that's opened up an entire Pandora's box for me, and I've never looked back. If you want to be successful, if you're grilling or cooking on the stovetop or in your oven, the only way you can have consistent results is by cooking to internal temperature. I got a bunch of different meat thermometers, and this is only 2 of many that I've got. I've got kind of a fetish for them. If you want to know whatever temperature you need to cook at, whatever protein you're cooking, you can Google it. All right? You can Google, hey, what is the internal temperature of beef? And it will tell you. Most meat thermometers come with a little chart that will show you, hey, beef is at 145 degrees for medium rare. Venison is at 160 degrees for ground meat, or 130 for steak or whatever. If you will do that, I don't care if you're making a pork loin in the oven or whatever you're making on the grill or you're smoking it, cook it to internal temperature and you can't fail. That's my tip of the week for you. I hope you have a great week and thanks for watching.